Hello, everybody. I'm Lone Wolf XPG, and this is going to be a very special episode for everybody. I'd like to introduce my good friend, Mr. Mark Alloso, otherwise known as Deathmarked. He is the one of the more prominent judges of Magic the Gathering here in Iloilo City. Hindi ka pa na, more or less. And of course, I'm the Yu-Gi-Oh guy, allegedly.
Okay, hello guys.
So anyway, Master Mark, I guess the people would like to know, how did you get into Magic the Gathering?
So basically, we can recall back in the days, back in high school days. Not really that kind of the old guy. So since being a batang 90s, back in those days, card games was very popular, especially those starting with the collectible card games with the NBA cards, Pokemon, and later on Magic the Gathering. So I started learning that hobby back when a classmate introduced me to the game. And basically, we're just having fun playing out the decks during our vacant time in high school. And later on, I got to be able to adapt it in college. We're having a definite friend and a card pool mate basically because of we're basically sharing our bonds, our daily strategies to buy those booster packs to be able to build out our decks, in which we're just basically building out those out of the cards that we got from those packs. And later on, after graduation, then that's basically it. When got your first job and your own salary to basically use those to spend those cards and buying those specific card components for those decks to be able to become competitive in playing this Magic. So that's basically it.
Basically, it's more or less like, since I like you, also batang 90s man ko in a way. Yeah, I'm that old already. I know. Pero like, it's very interesting, no? Like, basically, since like I would assume, basically from a Yu-Gi-Oh standpoint, well, back in the day, I'm quite familiar and slightly aware of Magic the Gathering, because I remember back in elementary school, there was like certain school, no? Basically, like I remember when I was in around 5th, 6th grade, there were already people playing Magic the Gathering. And I recall back in the day, it wasn't just like a couple of people lang, no? It was all like, let's do isang section.
There are groups that play, but it was quite forbidding because of the art.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
the art.
The same can be said for Yu-Gi-Oh! No? But like on my part naman, I basically Yu-Gi-Oh! Started for me around basically late 90s because it was a manga, it was also an anime. And then in the US, basically that's where I first got my first introduction to the card game itself. Because there's two things about Yu-Gi-Oh! There's of course, the Japanese invented it, Konami. So
that's the original.
Yeah. And so I essentially started around early 2000s in terms of the card game. But most people knew what the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime was.
Yeah, they were introduced first for the anime before the game.
Mm.
Hoping us would also have for Magic, since we're basically just going with just card games, not no other means. I think that they would do.
Like for example, for me, like when I got my first booster pack around it was called Legend of Blue Eyes. Of course, everybody knows what the Blue Eyes White Dragon is. Everybody knows what
it was even to us.
Yes.
I've heard.
Magado, everybody has heard it naman. Yu-Gi-Oh! Back then was a little bit different from what it is today. And of course, growing up, people thought it was kind of weird. But of course, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards back in the day had a different back, and now it kind of looks like this. But essentially, that was basically it for me around early 2000s. That's when I really started getting into the game. And like I said, it was so simple back then. Nowadays, and I'm not knocking down the game I'm playing, I'm just saying that it's kind of complicated
It
nowadays.
was
Kumbaga, it evolves, but it's kind of...
yeah, but from my perspective, medyo like learning it, it's quite a challenge now because of the combinations of the mechanics and the thing.
Of course, yes.
But anyway,
But anyway, pretty much that's it for me, like in terms of backstory. And at one point, I was the head of my own Yu-Gi-Oh group.
it was a long head before when we got some hobby conventions. Back in the day, you were the team leader for the TCG, and I was for Magic. So it was good. We're still having those the unicorns and the hobby conventions and stuff.
And basically, that's another story for another day. Poptopia PH Iloilo is a very awesome store that can cater to all your hobby needs. If you want trading card games, Funko Pops, card sleeves, binders, all that awesome stuff from various card games and all your hobbies galore. Sir Mark Ian Alloso, also known as Deathmarked, I will leave a link in the description below as well to his YouTube and Shopee channels, so feel free to check them out as well.